is going on, family? It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. Welcome to My Philosophy with Coach Orlando. I have not recorded one of these in a moment. We've been working on some things and we have been developing some things in terms of how we're going to be working and how we're going to be delivering. And those of you who are ready and we align have seen us hitting you with the Monday Moment and the Starting Point newsletter to let you know what's going on, and Thoughtful Thursday being the day on which I plan to share my philosophy and bring that back. So no more Tuesdays, no more Tuesdays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. We are going to Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 p.m. Central. Mountain, I know y'all be doing y'all's thing. You accustomed to doing the math. You do the math. If you are outside the United States and watching this, yes! Also, I don't know the math there, but it will be 4 p.m. Pacific, and I'm sure that your technology will be able to fill in the gaps. For those who don't see it during that time, it will be available in We Align, along with the TED Talks and the articles and all the things that we're putting together. We want this to be resource rich, and we want to get y'all in there discussing, comparing notes, encouraging, supporting, challenging, all the things so that we can get to consistently being our best selves, living our best lives. Now, some of you may have noticed, that I title this All the Rage. So yes, it's my philosophy, but usually if I have an idea going in of what I want to talk about, I will make sure that I include that there so folk know what they're getting themselves into. So all the rage, what do I mean by that? Well, obviously, all the rage is a saying, right? Something was all the rage. It was, that's what everybody's going crazy about. It was the most popular thing around. And on some level, I would like for the Align approach to be all the rage, because I really believe, based on my own personal experience, some of which I'm going to share today, and some of the experiences I have seen my clients go through, I have seen my family and friends with whom I've been able to share the approach go through. It impacts people's lives profoundly. It impacts their relationships. It impacts their sense of power. And it's not just a matter of achieving goals, right? Because when we align who we are, where we are, and where we want to go, the first element of that, and in an interesting way, it's not where we start in the process, but I think philosophically, I always knew that the main is aligning who you are to where you are and where you want to go. How I might get from A to B could be entirely different than how you might get from A to B, even if it's the same A to B, because of how I'm showing up, because of how I choose to be. Right? And so I've shared before, but I want to share now. When we talk to people about their who, what we're saying is we want to find 3 to 5 characteristics that would make it most likely, if you embodied those, if that's how you showed up in the world, if that's what you were doing in the world, right? That would make it most likely that you would get from the starting point to the point. Right? I realize it's changed screen direction on y'all for those of you who pay attention to such things, from the starting point to the point. Okay? But what happens when the point isn't a job or a business or an amount of money or anything? What if the point, as you're looking at a moment, as a situation, as you're making choices about who you are and what you're going to do and where you're focusing, what if your point, as it was for me, is to be a good man? Now that drives me crazy that I landed on that idea. And it drives me crazy that I landed on that idea because I hate when people sort of vaguely use good positive, right? Because it's usually soft and it really doesn't have a meaning or any real. It's nice, you know. It's a cotton candy descriptor a lot of times, but also sometimes it gets in the way, right? So I don't want to be the kind of good man who, in claiming he's such a good man, then doesn't take responsibility for the ways in which he could be better. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a vague idea, something out of a 50s movie or TV show, a briefcase, and, well, son. No, that's not what I'm talking about, because I think we've already gone through the process of undressing that dude and figuring out he might not be so good himself. I'm talking about what's good for Coach Orlando. How I show up, and I'm throwing that third person, but I'm letting you know my name, all the things. But what's good for me? What's good for me? And what I've come to, and it's evolved over the years, and it'll evolve some more, right? Calm, courageous, consistent, healthy, loving. And what I discovered is there's a foundation underneath all those. Underneath calm, courageous, consistent, healthy, loving, there's a foundation of vulnerability. There's a foundation of vulnerability. If I'm really gonna live each of those characteristics, on some level or levels, I'm gonna have to leave myself open, leave myself at risk to pain, to disappointment, to frustration, right? To all sorts of quote unquote negative emotions. I don't want to get sidetracked into positive and negative emotions. We'll talk about that another day. But as I looked at myself, and that first word, calm, is part of it, I can spend a lot of my days and nights calm. A lot. But since I was a little kid, I had this thing maybe some of y'all have heard of. It's called a temper. Which is a polite way to say that given the wrong circumstances, Orlando from the age of 6 to big old 52, daggone near, not quite because I've been doing some work, Orlando could go off. Go off as empathetic and thoughtful and all sorts of words that I hold on to and that mean a lot to me about how I can be. I also had this, as my friend said, I have this gear I can kick into that allows me to go off, to cuss people out, to straighten them out, to let them know I've thrown hands, right? There's stories about me amongst my cousins and stuff where, like, that's the punchline of the story is like, Orlando ran out of patience with it and he put an end to it. And as I've discovered about myself that there's a warrior in here, that left me with a little bit of a riddle, right? How do I hold on to the warrior? How do I live as the warrior? How do I show up in the world as the warrior without the rage? Is that even possible? Is that how I get down? And what I learned through a ton of therapy and a ton of personal work and studying and watching and writing and reading and listening is not only is it possible, but that I could do the work to put myself in a space where I can show up as the warrior, where I can express anger, but not rage. And here's a few key things about rage, because I would say this is true for any emotion that goes out of balance. It's going to take you out of the present, right? So that's why people talk about depression, right? Living in the past, anxiety, living in the future. We want to live in the now. Well, I would say it may not quite fit on a timeline like that, but there's something about swallowing the things that make you angry, which I also did, and just going off. And I want to be clear about the going off. Going off doesn't just mean yelling. It means when you are separated from your own words and actions to some degree. I had times in my life where people were like, "Did you know you said?" And I had to admit, at least to myself, usually to them, I did not know I said. How could I be the warrior without that, though? There'd been times in my life where it has served me very well, where I'd use that energy and that way of being to protect myself, to protect people I love. How do I bring all that together? So I won't take you through all of it. I will highly recommend therapy for everybody, no matter what balance you're trying to find or thing you're trying to address. But this out of control rage, this fear induced rage, what was that about? And what I was able to do is discover for myself that there was just a deep and abiding fear. A little kid who was just scared. A little skinny kid who was just scared. And there were moments where at my big old age and my big old size, and I like being bigger, but I'm maybe a little bigger than I'm meant to be, but that's another conversation for an even other day. But at my big old age and at my big old size, that something could go down or somebody could come at me and I'd be that little scared kid again. And then I had the capability, though, to summon the rage. Just put that little kid behind me and roar, back everybody up. It wasn't serving me. Not consistently. Not in a way that I was in charge of. Right? It's the difference between somebody just taking a basketball, just hurling it from half court and it goes in. It doesn't make them a great shooter. They can't replicate that. I wanted to know that I could replicate going to war or avoiding war, or simply just expressing anger while staying present. At one point, generally, I told my therapist, I want to figure out what it would be like to live in the zone. You know the zone people talk about, performers talk about it, athletes talk about it. You may have experienced it in your own life. It's when you're walking through, you just feel like you see it all. You hear it all. You don't think about what to do. You just do it and it's right. I told him I want to work on living there. How do I think this process I've been teaching people. I think we can use it to move toward the place where more and more and more and a greater percentage and a greater percentage and a greater percentage of our time is spent in the zone. Where we're churning out ideas or we're able to see it, develop it, think about it, whatever it is that is specific to what we're doing. And I realized when I'm raging, I am absolutely positively not in the zone. So, okay. So if that's my new standard, then this rage thing is no good. What am I going to do? And what I've been able to do and what I want to share, and there's going to be more on this specific idea. I'm thinking about developing a talk on it. So if you have comments, thoughts, whatever, comment below. Let's talk about it a little bit because I really want to develop something here. This could be a book one day. Because it's not just about anger management. There are people who do anger management, and that's fine, and whatever serves you, right? Remember I talked about aligning who we are, where we are, and where we want to go? Pins and needles, needles and pen from Ralph Cramden. Serenity Now from George Costanza. Whatever it might be for you, take a breath and count to 10. Whatever it might be for you, cool. But for me, I didn't want to let go of the anger. There are times where I think anger can be righteous and helpful and useful. There's a utility to being able to experience your anger and go, something ain't right. Something ain't right in the world. Something ain't right in this country. Something ain't right in this city, on my block, in my house, in me. Something ain't right. But we can make it right. And we're more likely to make it right when we're present and in our personal zone, experiencing it, experiencing the pain, experiencing the confusion, experiencing the fear, and then being ourselves and showing up in that best version of us that makes it most likely that we make it to the point. So a story I'll tell at another time. Very recently, I had a confrontation with some folk, and it seemed to me that there were some attempts to provoke me in the first place. Because I let the average person know, like, we could do this however you want to do this, right? That's the warrior in me. Is like, we can have a conversation, we can throw it, what you want to do, because we're not going to do this all day. But I didn't rage. Even in expressing my anger, even in letting the people with whom I was having the confrontation know that they weren't going to push me around and I wasn't here to get bullied and it wasn't going to go down like that. And if they wanted to do something other than talk, we could do that too. I never raged. I was calm. And that little scared kid, we've been working, we've been talking, we've been doing our thing. He was courageous. He was like, all right, I'm not going to freak out. Because he didn't freak out. The warrior didn't get crazy. The warrior's like, I'm here if you need me. Like, cool. Why don't you step up here and do some of this hollering, man, because I'm getting tired. Like, so he stepped up. He did his hollering. Calm, courageous, consistent. What are you about? I mean, you're just going to be just 8, 9, 10 angry over every little thing. What are the things that really matter to you? I'm really invested in the idea of justice. I'm really invested in the concept of justice. And I felt an injustice had been done. And I felt another injustice was being heaped on top of the first injustice. And I was like, no, I'm not playing along. I'm consistent about that. Those who know me know. My whole feeling about declaring myself and trying to live as a feminist is me saying, that is unjust. It is unjust to pay someone less money for the same work. It is unjust to create a society where half the people there, speaking roughly, of course, where half the people live in perpetual terror, not even fear. It is unjust to turn the words that refer to half our population into insults and slanders. I'm going to say some of them here because what do you mean? I mean bitch, I mean pussy, I mean little girl, I mean the guy in the stands who gets upset about a roughing the passer call and, why'd you put skirts on him? A kilt is a skirt. Shut up. That is unjust. You are creating a situation and a world and an atmosphere where some people are not going to have a fair shot, where they will be treated unjustly. Well, when they are treated unjustly, we then will police how they tell us they've been treated unjustly. I'm not with it. And I notice that that's where I am in a lot of my life, whether it's for my family or my city or the nation or the world. It's unjust, so I'm not with it. And I am willing to be angry and to express my anger about injustice. People say no justice, no peace. Let me tell you something. You be mindful of people who will choose their peace over your justice. You be mindful of them. They're the third that watched the third that were Nazis kill the third that they decided needed to be put in somebody's oven. Don't you be in that third. I know I'm not going to be in that third. But it didn't mean, and it doesn't mean that I have to rage. I was able to align who I am with everything I've described to you, with my beliefs and my values, and to be true to that warrior that's at my core. But to be true too to the things I understand that help us to function at the highest level. And you can't be in the zone when you're out of control. You can't be in the zone when you're in the past. You can't be in the zone when you're in the future. You can't be in the zone unless you are where you are right now. And so, yes, I hope that Align Performance, the Align approach will become all the rage because I believe it will help a lot of people. But if you never learn the system, if you never learn any of that, I hope you will consider how it would work in your life to be present and true to yourself in a way that allows you to be righteously angry without being damagingly, I made up a word, enraged. Be present. It's all the rage.